this is not the man that you are. Like, you need to let us go. And there was brief moments of that he was lucid and he did allow us to leave. I feel like I lost him in 2020. And I get out of the shower and I'm standing there and I have this thought or, like that voice that just says, you're angry at the wrong person.
I don't need you to come and be my God. I already have one of those. I just need you to come be my companion.
It was actually one of my late husband's cousins told me, he said, the people who are going to be angry at you are, one, they're the problem, or two, they don't get it. I mean, it took me 32 years to find a place where I feel like I belong, but there's so much beauty in this world.
Hi, and welcome to another episode and another season of the Woman Witness podcast on the Woman Witness TV network. As you all know, we bring to you voices of women that are out there making a positive impact in their lives, in their family, in the community around them. Women of resilience, women who have battled through something and they are brave enough, strong enough to come back, share their story, and grab the hand of another sister. Today, I'm so excited to introduce to you my guest today, Miriah Dawn, author who has just published her book, The Dragon in You is her latest book. And we'll be talking today from a special point of both an incredible challenges and inspiring triumphs that Miriah Dawn has experienced, from growing up in the Mormon faith to navigating unique struggles to being a military spouse and facing the most unimaginable loss that anyone can imagine, the tragic loss of her late husband in 2021. Also, a survivor of domestic violence and someone who has lived through PTSD. She is here to share her deepest stories, her personal journey of rediscovering hope and leaving behind the religion that she once knew and ultimately returning to a renewed trust in God. God brought her solace through some of her darkest moments. And I'm so excited to introduce my guest today, Miss Miriah Dawn. Mariah, welcome to the well. How are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited to have you here, Mariah. I can't wait to deep dive into your story. You have such a remarkable, incredible story. I always find it interesting how God can take one person's journey and jam pack it with so many different stories, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking when you were talking. I was like, wow, I'm exhausted hearing the intro.
Right. It's like, man, where do I start? And I'm so excited that you took the warning, you heard it, and you wrote a book. And you took your a piece. I'm pretty sure I always tell people there's no way in the world you could take 20, 30, 40 years and jam pack it within one book. So I'm glad that you were able to jot down a piece of it and share it with us. And you're here at the well to bring us into the experience and the journey that you have went through. So let me just stop talking and just ask you just to share a little bit about who you are in your growing up and kind of shaping the podcast a little bit about who Miriah Dawn is.
Sure. I feel like I had a very typical, well, who has a typical, but
Right.
growing, childhood where I had five, two brothers, two sisters, mom, dad, all in the same household, church on Sunday, Wednesday night, church grew, but just, growing as from child to adolescence, there was nothing all that wild about it. I was a fire cadet, so I was on the weekends throwing ladders or running into buildings, but
Wow.
I guess that's a little different. But yeah, for the most part, I grew up in the Mormon faith and I put so much stock into that religion where when I finally did meet my husband, my late husband, he was basically the first person who ever kinda showed me interest, and
Mhm.
I was 19 when I met him, riding along on the fire engines for San Diego as a
Wow.
cadet, and I started to see all these people in the city of San Diego who weren't in my religion, and the thought just coming back to me, "How am I the only one getting into heaven?" Because that's
Mm.
the Mormons believed, and through meeting more and more people and my world expanding bigger and bigger, I approached my husband, who at the time we were just friends, and feel like that's when I started to move away from the Mormon religion, at least, like, there's a it's called physically in, mentally out, and
Mm.
that was around age, 19. Yeah.
Interesting. At age 19, I find it interesting to see that you had that thought, Mariah. I'm sorry. I think so many times people, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's not just your religion, but I think so many people in in Christianity and Catholic, and all these different religions. Sometimes they think that, oh, I'm the only one, right? And some people can feel in a place of solitude a little bit, like, like I'm kind of better than, not better than you, but but for you to be 19 and say, man, how am I the only one? I think it's huge, right? I mean, because you could have taken that and be like, I am the only one. And but anyway, so let's go into a little bit deeper. I want you to talk to us a little bit about how did your structure teaching the that you learned in the Mormon church shape your early life and your identity, especially to, become 19 and look at it as, am I the only one?
Yeah, I think, and my call to action in the book is I was very naive, and everything that was said to me by whether it be church leaders or mentors in the church, I took 100% stock in. So when I turned 8 and I got baptized, that's the age, it's just 8 years old. So I've learned in Christianity they can get baptized at any age.
Yeah.
Oh. In the Mormon church, it's 8, or if you convert, then you would get baptized. But
Mm.
to me, I was like, "Wow, I'm doing something right. Everyone's going to love me." There was so much codependency on doing what I was supposed to so that I could
Yeah.
get the love that I was searching for. And so then I get baptized. I do like I said, the Sundays, the Wednesdays, praying, feeling, feeling like I have an understanding of spirituality, but not quite understanding the Mormons' approach to it.
Mhm.
And I was looking at, like when we're all 8 years old, we look at 25, 30-year-olds and they have it together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So these
Mhm.
were the people teaching me. And as I like started to move into that bracket, I I couldn't grasp where I was and how I felt. Like it just all started to not make sense to me, I guess. So it was just
Mm.
the slow turn over into becoming the person that I wanted to become, and looking at this religion that and this could be any morals and values in a family. And I try to tell people that I don't have like hostility towards the Mormon church.
Right.
I just want, and I'm not going to go and dismantle the whole church, and that's not my journey. I don't
Sure. Sure.
don't feel that, but for the people who are still in, they're around very impressionable young children, and that's who I was, and I based my entire life off of the trajectory of what they were saying, as far as how to be loved and get eternal life.
That's deep. And so you go into that in your book?
Yeah, that's so I go through my it starts, as much as I can remember, but
Sure.
through the day I got baptized, when I started on the fire cadets, meeting my husband, and then this, I guess, existential crisis into I'm not gonna be around all these people that, friendships that I love because they're not with me on Sunday, and then finding a little bit of the loopholes in that, and wondering how God couldn't save these other people.
Wow. I'm so sorry. I'm intrigued with you right now. Let me don't jump ahead of myself. You might ask why, because I always think about the woman at the well.
Mhm.
And hearing you be so bold and so strong to stand alone, because I believe even in the Bible, it talks about the woman at the well. She was alone for a while, right? She was outcast, and still going back to do something. You could actually sit down by yourself and say, you know what, I'm out, but you wrote a book. Now you're talking and you're trying to reach as many people as you can through your book, through your story, which I want to get more into. Now you face unique challenges. I mean, being a military wife is, I believe, a challenge of its own, right? You went from one place of kind of like having that identity, in your upbringing in your Mormon church, to now a military wife, right? And so I know, even being a military wife, or a spouse, you're, in a whole nother secluded community of people, right? So talk to me about, how was that for you?
That's a good segue with the physically and mentally out.
Yeah.
And so I met my husband. We dated for 4 years ish, got married. So when we were dating, we moved to Las Vegas because he got stationed there.
Yeah.
So when I was there, then we got married. We moved back to San Diego while he deployed, and I had my 3-month-old son. Then we moved to Utah, not the Mormon. He got stationed there. Everyone always is.
Like, man.
We were in Missouri for a while as well, and then we moved to Pennsylvania, but the isolation of moving all the time actually kept me in the church longer because every time I moved, I would go to the church and say like, that was where I was looking for
Yeah,
friendship.
yeah,
And personally, I know that everyone has their own experience. I've always got along with Mormons and understood their desire to show love and give love and support each other, so
yeah,
anytime I went in there, I had this sense of security in
yeah.
knowing I know what they believe, I know what they're trying to accomplish, and so in all of our moves, we always ended up at the Mormon church,
Mm,
but
mm.
the most isolating part for me was coming home and trying to convince my husband to go, we met in the Mormon church, but
Oh, interesting.
yeah, but he was an alcoholic, and
Mm,
I felt like I was trying to merge these 2 things of my home life where I had a husband who I was trying to follow the Mormon faith, or at least take care of his body, and
mm,
then show up in church, and then he didn't feel like he belonged there, and that gap of he was drinking, so he was he was gonna be hungover and sitting in a pew the next day,
yeah.
and this again, this pull of knowing that he was a spiritual man, he wanted to be
Mm,
around and closer to God, but there for at least for him, from what he said, was that he didn't feel like he could show up.
yeah. Oh, wow. I'm sorry, Mariah. We can sit right there for a second if you don't mind, because I feel that a lot of people fall into this rut, if you will,
Mhm.
where we feel that we just don't belong. We feel like we're not good enough. And I'm going to tell you, that has no religion to it. I think that's all of us.
Correct.
When we look at ourselves in the mirror, we go out, we do something like, Lord, I know I told you I'll never do it again. And here I am doing it again, doing it again.
Yes.
So I can totally relate to that, of trying to be this perfect person for God, and feeling like you're falling short, and having the judgment of that you hold amongst upon yourself. So I'm sorry. I just wanted to share that, and I can definitely relate to that. How did your husband deal with that at the time?
He didn't go. You have to understand he was walking into a place where these people had never drank. So, because of
Mm.
the more you don't drink at all. So it's not,
Oh,
"Oh, he has too much." It's
mm.
almost like this spectacle because this was the time when we were in Utah. So, like, there's state liquor stores. It's not just liquor stores out there.
Well, what do you mean? I'm sorry. You said?
Yeah, it's so they have their it's like not normal to see alcohol. Like, when people go out, it's not to have a beer because you're
Oh.
surrounded by Mormons, so
Oh, okay, yeah.
it
So
was like
somebody
this,
gonna see you.
"Oh, look at that," like so,
Got it, got it.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
I'm just trying to explain the
no, this is good.
severity, I guess,
Mhm.
of what he was facing, and also trying to stay authentic to himself, because when you go from the point of having a drink to using it to cope, he was having, and I try really hard not to talk for him, so everything
Yeah,
I'm saying is conversations that we had in the past and
sure.
what I've learned about alcoholism,
Yeah,
and that was that he was also having the inner shame of using it as a coping mechanism, not just a person who had a drink every once in a while. So,
yeah,
he just avoided church. When we moved, I mean, there was days where I would convince him, or I would, iron his shirt, put it all up, have be like,
yeah.
"Also, like, you just have to put it on, like, that's all you have to do."
Yeah.
Um, and yeah.
No, I appreciate what you said, as far as, not speaking for him, and I love that. But I do believe that even what you're sharing from your standpoint can relate to a lot of people, because sometimes I feel like when we're in whatever it is that we're in, whether it's drinking, whether it's smoking, whether it's partying, whether it's procrastinating, whether it's lying, whether it's cheating, there's other people who see us before we see ourselves. And we may be battling it within ourselves, but we need someone to pull us out of it. Okay, I want you to talk to me about the loss. You said in 2021, that's when your life changed profoundly. And dealing with that loss, of your late husband, can you share the experience about that and how that shaped your perspective moving forward?
I'll just say it changed every perspective and every facet of every crevice of my life. In 2020 in June, um, it was a few months into COVID, so my husband no longer had to show up at work. So the
Mm.
beers that started right after started happening for breakfast.
Yeah.
The lack of accountability that it takes to check a couple of emails and was slowly creeping more into our everyday, and we were in a trucker town in
Mhm.
Easton, Pennsylvania, so when you see the pictures of the empty walls,
Yeah.
grocery stores, that was us,
Yeah.
and, so we were, like, hibernated in this home, and it got to a point where I had to leave because my life was at stake and over multiple times, and was not going to survive that house. And I sat down with him and I said, "This is not the man that you are. Like, you need to let us go." And there was brief moments of that he was lucid and he did allow us to leave,
Mhm.
but I lost him then. So I feel like I lost him in 2020.
Got it.
I, took my children, we drove across the country, and there was 0 traffic because it was the world was shut down, so,
Yeah.
um, and
Mm.
then we separated, and I went from this man who I was terrified of, who took, chances at my physical, mental, spiritual, every kind of identity that I had lost it.
Mm.
I I remember from that, like, from the moment I left until he died, I would lay in bed and, like, my whole mindset was, "If he's going to come find us, just don't let me wake up for it."
Mm.
And or I would think, like, like, if I get into a car accident, like, just don't let me wake up for it, and it wasn't that I didn't want to live, it was that I couldn't fathom laying in the hospital bed or, um,
Yeah.
like, being there, seeing his face before he tried again,
Yeah.
and I remember I was 5 days into my new job when I found out, the police had called me, and, the feeling of getting like of wanting to die quickly if it was going to happen immediately left me.
Mm.
I remember like a month later thinking,
Oh, wow.
I haven't I haven't thought that of because I was trying to survive every single day, and yet I had this, like, almost
Looking over your shoulder?
yeah, well, it wasn't looking over my shoulder, but it was almost like it could all be over in an instinct, so I was so, like, afraid of that, and then also, like, this could all be over in an instinct, and the moment that he died and it was all over in an instinct in that regard was there was, like, a sense of relief, and then there was this absolute devastation for the fact that I wasn't falling asleep looking out the window or
Mm.
texting him knowing he was at least 8 hours away so I could get 8 hours of sleep. Uh,
Mm.
and
I
that I would say that was, the thing that was the hardest for me and why I was so angry at God because I didn't believe in him.
Mm.
And not having that piece of, like, both peace in my heart and the missing puzzle piece
Yeah.
of I'm going to go to meet my maker one day
Mm.
made life absolutely, completely unbearable, and I was only living for my children.
Oh, I got it. Oh, I got it, what you're saying.
Mhm.
I hear exactly you're stuck.
And I was so I was so jealous of the people who would who could show up in a church building and who could say thank God, or who could say that Jesus was their savior. The
Mm.
I was so jealous of it, and yet there was no convincing me. There was you know what I'm saying? Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't like, "I'm going to brainwash myself enough to believe in this God because I don't believe in him."
Mm. Oh, that's good, Maria. When do you after navigating that time in your in your life, when did everything click that you then was able to move forward?
So the good stuff. Yeah, really, yeah, let's get there. So I ended up going to my first kind of, survivors meeting of military spouses,
Mm.
and I met this girl, and she invited me to something called Never Alone, and it's called Never Alone Widows, and it's a group of women, and I drove, like, an hour to get there, and I walk into this room, and it's young widows, so it's welcome to any age.
Mm.
There was people younger than me, there were people older than me, but there's a lot of people my age, and I walked in and I sat down and somebody looks at me and the first thing they say, right? And I don't think that they were being malicious, I think it was a God moment. They looked at me and they said, "So do you believe in like, do you go to church? Like, do you believe in God?" And I was like, "Whoa." Like,
Nice to meet you.
yeah, like, my friend invited me, like, I'm chained to this chair because of my friendship, like, I'm not and I looked at her straight in the eyes and I said, "No, but I wish that I did."
Mm.
And, like, a minute later, the, speaker gets up there, and it's actually recorded, so I went back and I looked at it, and I'm looking down at the table, and,
Mm.
he gets up there, and he's a widower, and he was the guest speaker. Um couple years older than me, and he starts his speech and or they start singing these songs, and it was like, "Jesus this, Jesus that," and and I'm like, "If they say Jesus one more time, like, I'm
Mm.
leaving, that's it." Like, I gave it my best try,
Yeah.
and he starts talking, and he said, "I've traveled all over the country giving this speech, but this is the first time where instead of the air getting sucked out of the room because of what I say, everyone in here says, 'I know.'" And I was in
Mm.
the video, you see my head, like, whip around,
What?
like Yeah, you're right, like, because I had been on the defense for so long, having to defend myself on how awful this was, how traumatized I was, and holding this space for myself on my right to grieve, and nobody put that on me, but I put that on myself, right? Because not
Mm,
only was I immediately a widow, but I was losing the identity. Lose is the wrong word, but the identity of separated, going through divorce, being a survivor of abuse, and um having to stand up to, like, quote unquote my captor, right? Like this
yeah.
person who hurt me. And then the moment he died, realizing that I spent 10 years with him. I am raising his beautiful children.
Mm,
And when he said that, I thought, or when the speaker said, um, "You can all say I know," I was like, "Okay, so we're in a room where we all say I know, like, fine, say," and it wasn't like, "Oh my goodness, like, somebody knows." It was like, "Alright, fine, I'll listen to you."
yeah,
And he gave his speech. It was, his story, which we all have a story.
yeah.
So it wasn't as similar, as mine, but and then I'm in a room full of these people who have the
Mm.
same
Similar story.
story as me, and they have the same, title, right?
Yeah.
Widow. And I he leaves, I kinda go on with my life, and it's just this lingering thought, like, the thought won't go away that I know, like, there's there's other people, there's this whole other world that I belong in, and it's a widow world,
Mm,
and I'm 29 years old.
mm,
So,
mm.
I get out of the shower, or I'm in the shower, and that's kind of always been, my place to recenter myself,
Yeah.
and I I think my kids were at school or something, but I'm like, out loud yelling at Michael, my husband, or
Yeah.
my late husband, and I'm saying, "How dare you? Like, you
Yeah.
make this right. Like, you did this to us. I gave you everything. I gave, like, my last ounce of hope was all taken with you." I was so There's so much anger just festering in me, and I get out of the shower, and I'm standing there, and I have this thought, or, like, that voice that just says, "You're angry at the wrong person."
Mm,
And I'm, like, in a towel, and I fall to my knees, and I was like, "Then God make it right."
mm.
Like, he was giving me permission to be angry at him, at God, right? The God of the universe was telling me, like, "You can be angry with me." And as a parent, seeing that in my child, they're like, "You know what? You can be angry with me, that, like, that's fine."
Yeah.
Um, I was like, "Okay, God, like, you make it right then. Like, I'm going to give this anger to you, like, you can have it, and if you give me peace, like, I will do what you want." And I remember saying, "I'll go to church." Like, I'll do it. And
Yeah.
of course, like, you challenge God, and he, like, there he is. Um, so I
Mm,
felt just all of the anger that I had left me, and I was still so sad, and I still had so much grief, but that sense of peace or joy that of the Christian heart, like, it was with me, and that it did leave at times, but I was able to pull it back and to remember that, like, this is so much bigger than me, like, and my, like, sad thoughts or bad days. So,
yeah. Wow. Mariah, this is so beautiful. Everything that you shared and the way you shared is so relatable, so compelling because I believe a lot of us can hear and listen to you and see ourselves in many ways in having that moment. I know somewhere in the Bible, don't ask me where, but it's in there somewhere where it says, lay down all your burdens and he will give you rest and give you peace. And, I think so many times because some of us, I can only talk about myself, I'm so controlling that I even too want to control the way I feel, right? But, there has been many times where I'm just like, okay, God, I'm done. I
Yeah,
am
yeah.
so done. And I think when we give it all to God in that moment and we take our hands completely off of it, He's able to give us that peace. And that's what I hear you explain. And it's so relatable because I know that feeling of like peace. And we have to keep remembering that. I want to talk about what began to then shape your ministry. You are so brave to have overcame so much and to then turn around and begin to talk about your PTSD and surviving abuse and being a domestic abuse survivor. Talk to me about how this manifests in your life and what steps did you take to moving towards going out and talking about it, making it your ministry or part of your ministry.
Yeah, so everyone always asks, like, how I did it, how I wrote a book, and it was honestly it was a journal that I had in 2020. I was getting such severe panic attacks that I was not functioning.
Mhm.
I will say for myself, like, I will hold pride and a candle to the fact that I always showed up to my children for my children. They were
Mm,
fed, they were safe, they got out of the house, and they were read, but, it might have been the bare minimum, but
yeah.
I my mind was just tormented, like, and I pulled up a Word document and I started writing everything out, and you call this podcast The Woman Witness, and that Word document was my witness.
Mm,
I took it and I took everything that I had to hold on to because I was the only one there, I was the only one who experienced it, and I gave myself a witness. So I put it
mhm,
all in this document, and it just allowed me to release it because I no longer had to be the person to carry it alone. And that that to me is like the best advice, the best thing that I can offer someone is allow somebody else to give you that validation. I was in a grocery store once, and I write about it in the book too, where
mhm.
I was at a park, and this mom looks over at me, and she's like, "Hi, I'm so and so, and how are you?" And I just looked at her and I said, "I'm not doing well. I'm going through an awful divorce." And she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm going through divorce too." And
Wow.
everything just came off of us. And that witness of seeing
Wow.
in her eyes and her demeanor that what I was going through was really this bad, allowed me
Mm.
to know that it was that bad.
Wow.
So, once I had finished writing out the book, and it was merely a journal, I approached someone at my church who was an editor of books, and he helped me move it into book form, and I remember thinking to put it into perspective, I wrote this document in May of 2021, or sorry, 2024. I felt like I was finished with it. In June, or got help, got an editor, started getting the book cover design. In June 2024, I left my husband in 2020. He died in 2021. In 2024, I made a Facebook post and I said I had actually left him before he passed away. There was, like, he suffered, and I gave a very Spark Notes version of what happened, and everyone was floored.
Mm.
There was so many people who reached out to me, and they said that they had no idea
I had no idea.
a about anything that happened. I could not talk about it. Um, it was all it was all with me in this document, and One, the way that people showed up for me, and I was getting phone calls from people I knew 10 years ago who were like, "Hey, can we, like, catch up? I can't believe I wasn't there for you." And and then they would kind of open up about their journey,
Yeah.
and realizing that what I went through is not all that uncommon, and especially the fact that I survived is very uncommon. And in one of my conversations with God, I said, all of these pages were meant to be empty. Like, I'm not, like, if the carnal way had it, I would not be here. And
Mm.
so whatever these blank pages are for, like, I will fill them up with what you want me to. And
Mm.
I've when I just kinda gave it over and thought, like, "I'm grateful for this breath right now. Whatever you want me to do with it, like, I'm good. I'll do it." So,
Wow.
really just handing it over and being grateful for the space that I am in to share my story has, and don't get me wrong, like, I've definitely woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning and thought, like, I was so private about everything and now it's so public, but, um, I it's just what I feel is the right move.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I'm sorry. Letting God author your story. And I love what you said that those pages could be empty. I'm sorry. It's such a humbling um statement that you made, and one that I can definitely relate to myself. And I'm pretty sure many women and men, but for the sake of the podcast, many women can relate to those pages should be empty. And because God brought you through, I love how you said, "Here, God, tell me what to write. Here, you can have the pen back. I shouldn't even be here right now. What do you want me to write? What do you want me to do?" And when you said you woke up like at 3 o'clock in the morning, is it like, what is this, right? Everybody now knows but he took your story and he's using it to help shape someone else's life.
Exactly, and
Ah,
there there has been a wanting of making it right
yeah.
for for myself, for my children, and for my husband, because and I was sharing this with my friend the other day, is like every day I wake up, right, I'm able to write those pages. I'm able to try my best to make this better and to bring forth good and to make this devastating thing into beauty. But my late husband isn't, right? Like his pages
Oh,
stopped. And I feel like I have the opportunity, with our story to give him some kind of, like, I don't wanna say I don't know what the word is, but to make it so that, like, wherever he is now, he can know that they say God counts every tear, right? So, maybe some of the tears that I cried over my husband, like, together, we can be open and a microscope and people can dissect us and figure out how to not do this for either the next generation or so forth. And in a way, I feel like that's me honoring God, but it's also me honoring my husband. And I know that that's controversial, and every single
no.
time I say it, people are like, "But you wrote your story," and maybe that's just how I feel if I were to not be able to speak anymore, but to just to make something right of this for us.
And you're right. I think you said the key word for the next generation.
Mhm. Yeah, and I've had a
Mm,
lot of people read this book, and close friends of mine, like, we all kinda gathered, and I'm in a widow community, I know people going through divorce, and,
mm,
um, it's really, really, really hard for them to read, and I tell them, "Make it a paperweight." It's not maybe you don't read
mm.
it, that's fine, but would it imagine if you were to say if you could give this book or knowing somebody has gone through something similar. So, a parent,
Yeah.
"Hey, mom, this is," or if you know somebody who, is in a abusive relationship and you can get into their mind and kind of have compassion for them and understand the whole, "Well, why didn't they leave?" Well, why didn't they call the police or something like that and
Yeah.
get inside the head of me?
Yeah.
And so I do hope people can read it who've gone through similar things, but it's very, triggering. So it might be helpful in understanding the voice and feeling not alone, but it is also a major reason why I wrote it was to give people an inside look in something they've never experienced before and they don't understand.
Oh, that's good. That is so good. And I love what you said, Mariah, about people who may perhaps it doesn't relate to them, but at the same time, like you said, it will give them empathy. So that one, they can recognize the signs of their friends and their family or anyone they've encountered, know what that looks like. And I'm pretty sure you go into detail and you talk about what it looks like to exist and smile in front of people and shake their hand and kiss babies and you were suffering
Mhm.
inside. Um, Let me ask you something. What support system do you give credit to during the time that you leaned on to help you through some of these toughest times?
So when I left, I felt like I didn't have a support system. I returned to my parents' house, so I had their support, but they also didn't understand what was going on because I was very private about it. So the
Mm.
encounters that they had with my husband, it was, "Hey, maybe he shouldn't talk to you like that," or but I never even spoke to them and I was living in their house.
Mm.
But I did have a place to land and that was their home. And um but I didn't have anybody and I had kind of a boyfriend who couldn't commit, and this was, about 6 months after I had left, and it was kind of
Yeah.
random. Um, but we were not God-centered.
Yeah.
It was he was giving me everything that I have now found in God, and so
Yeah.
in a way, I had kind of like a guy who dated me who, um gave me that temporary peace and feeling of loved and all of that.
Yeah.
I when that obviously, you know, exploded because we were trauma bonded and, um,
Mm.
it was not what I was looking for, although I really appreciated it, like, at the moment, and I won't speak for him. But,
Look.
but so I kind of like I had this, like, kinda boyfriend-ish, and
Mhm.
then it was actually so when I talk about the widows group, it was, um, a few months after that we broke up, and, it absolutely crushed me because, he was the person that I leaned on. He was the person who went through it all, who held me when I was, crying, who, answered my phone calls, who let me be hysterical,
Yeah.
and then I had all of my I don't wanna say self-worth worth because I like to think of myself a little bit more than that, but,
Yeah.
um, when we broke it off, that's when I really realized that I didn't have a support system. So,
Interesting, yeah,
yeah, I when we broke it off and then I was like, I went to church and I sat in the back pew and I was like, "I know this is where I'm supposed to be." Like, and I would show up at church and I'd sit in the back row and I would just sob every Sunday for like the band would play and I would sob and it was no longer "Don't say Jesus," but it was the spirit just gets filled when I hear the music, and so I would sit there, sob, the sermon would go on, they'd stand, they'd sing, I'd sob again, and, one time, maybe it was, like, my 3rd week there, they started singing, and I ran across the courtyard, like, I left during the song, and I ran across the courtyard, and I grabbed my daughter, like, I broke past the childcare people, and I just held my daughter, who was, 4, maybe almost 5 at the time, um,
Mhm.
and I, like, held her and I sobbed, and someone came up to me, and she's my friend now, but she just grabs my hands, and she started praying with me,
Oh.
and I was, um I was unable to speak or to stand, and I went through an entire box of tissues to the point where, like, next week, I was like, I'm giving back this box of tissues, like, replacing it, and I stood up, and I took my daughter and and I went and got my son, and we went home, and I was like, I think, like, 1, like, how embarrassing could that be, right? Like, just this girl
Mm.
falls apart, right? And she's got these 2 small children, but they just held me,
Mm.
like, and, prayed with me, and I started coming back, I joined a life group, I gained some more friends, and actually, to kinda bring it full circle, the person who ended up editing my book was in the band.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so the sense of community came years later, but it really took it home for me how important it is when to have community and then to have good community. People that and I don't know how many people can relate exactly to what I went through and all the different stuff. I found a few people, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter that the girl who was praying with me had a loving spouse with also 2 small children and, had been going to church her whole life, like, she was there in that moment for me. So, um,
Mm.
showing up every week to church, and then also not relying fully on these people on earth, to
Yeah.
be that for me, but when I talk about all of these things that this old boyfriend gave me, and I've now replaced that with the sense of God, I can turn and look at to these people in my church and be like, "You know what? You're not gonna be there at 3 o'clock in the morning." We'll keep
Mm.
that going. You're not gonna come over and clean my house every day and get me to work on time, like, but that feeling that I need to, God is there and he's doing that for me. And I can come in and I feel like I've really struggled with the
Mm.
what it means to have a man in my life,
Yeah.
why do we have this desire and or a sense of community? And when I started looking or I feel like was inspired that this sense of community is God in its physical form showing us love. And so if someday, like, my imagination's not that big, so I can't picture it, but, like, a man comes into my life, like, he is no longer my savior, like, I got one of those, I'm
Oh,
good. But, like, if you
come on, Mariah.
if somebody wants to come in and mirror what my God does for me in a spiritual sense and show me in a physical form, like, like,
That's
I'll give
amazing.
you a second. I'll give you 2 minutes instead of 5 seconds.
Come on. So I don't need you to come and be my God. I already have one of those. I just need you to come be my companion.
Mhm.
Girl, that's deep. That's deep. Okay, I want to ask you. Oh my gosh. Looking forward, you have shared your story and you shared it so beautifully. And it, so beautifully. I wanted to ask you what's next for yourself as an author and advocate.
Well, we gotta ask we gotta ask that guy.
Yeah, right. Look at
Yeah. Um, I'm I'm not sure. I would love to travel and to go sit with people and to share my story of coming full circle and giving hope to others. That obviously comes with people wanting to hear me talk. So, um,
so
but
beautiful, beautiful.
yeah, but I think I'm kind of drawn to going and experiencing more of the world and getting outside of my bubble and my everyday and meeting beautiful people like yourself who are have this desire to pull stories out of people to multiply it to the masses so that they can hear it and
Mm.
um I I know for now I started a blog and I I don't fully know from there, but I don't have, I don't wanna say a sense of urgency because, like, that's the worst thing to say in an interview, right? Um, but I feel very content in wanting to continue to share and show people that they're not alone, and this is not a my I've kinda stolen this tagline from a book that I read that it's called No Visible Bruises, and if you've heard me talk for 10 minutes, I'm gonna bring it up, but
Mhm.
it's about domestic violence and, PTSD, and it's kind of like it's the stories of the people who left, but they also go to the prison, and they talk to people who were there for these charges, and bring forth their stories, and at the end of the so she's giving you a full picture, and at the very end, she goes, the point of this book is to make it obsolete.
Mm.
Like, let's make this a history
Mm.
book and not have this,
Beacon into it.
uh, be continued. So, look at me like I'm weird or some, like, tea, like, if you're here for the tea, that's cool, but just remember, like, there's a point to this.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
um,
Like that.
yeah. So, whatever I don't truly know where that falls into, but I'm not afraid of this conversation. I had, it
Mm.
was actually one of my late husband's cousins told me, he said, "The people who are gonna be angry at you are 1, they're the problem,
Yeah.
or 2, they don't get it." And I will sit with anybody till I'm blue in the face, till, all ever I will talk about this until the person gets it, if that's what they need or what they want. So, that's the best
Mm.
I got for that. Yeah.
I love
I
it.
know,
I love
but
it.
I just know that when I was quiet, nothing happened. I was just in this Groundhog Day, and Um, already the amount of people who've reached out and thanked me and said, I've had 3 people now say that they read my book, which was 400 pages in
Wow.
2 days, and
Come
that
on.
their spouses were like, "Hey, like, what are you doing?" Like, "I'm here," like, or she's like, one friend was like, "My husband," or I said I was done with it, and he's like, "Didn't you say you started that yesterday?" So,
Mm,
um, like,
that's good.
yeah, I don't it's seeming to help people, so
And that's why God told you to write it. If you can go back and speak to your younger self, what words of wisdom or hope would you share with her?
it's interesting that you ask that because yesterday I went up into my attic to put away a suitcase and I grabbed an old backpack. Um, and it was a backpack that I bought around the time when he separated. We still did FaceTime calls and he came out to visit twice. And on one of the times he came out to visit, he actually ended up on a 5150 hold, a psychiatric
Mm.
hold.
Okay.
And for that whole visit, I had this new backpack, and I grabbed the backpack and I was like, "Oh, I need it. My old backpack's falling apart." So I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna use this backpack. I haven't used it in years." And I put it in the car and I'm driving my kids to music class, and we're driving and I look over the backpack and I had to actually pull over because I had a panic attack, and I was like, "I'm not gonna go to music," but then there's this whole pull of, like, I'm not gonna be defined by my anxiety and my panic, like, I have a life to live, this isn't gonna hold me back, and so I've got that spinning along with the fact of, like, I can't drive because I don't get them a lot, but I happen to get it, and
Oh, yeah.
I looked over at that backpack, and I quickly switched everything back into my old backpack, and I looked at it, and I thought because the anxiety, it wasn't like, to me, it was kind of a blessing, right? Like, it
Mhm.
was reminding me of that girl who was so lost and tired and sad, and here I am just living my life today, 2024, and
Mm,
I just thank her, like, so deeply
mm,
for doing the things that she needed to get to this place and, um, showing up, like, I showed up for myself, so, um, I thought about it this morning, I was like, "I don't think this backpack is something I'm gonna keep in my life," but just imagine we actually have, like, a mom exchange, I'm gonna bring it and give it to somebody else who can breathe new life into it,
yeah.
and, I really just, like, hold sacred that girl who
Mm, I love
I don't wanna say she was lost, but she was gone. Like, I was not, um I don't even feel like I had a soul at that time.
mm,
Um, and now I don't know, I can look at this backpack, I kinda had my moment, I don't wanna look at it again, but, I can honor her. I feel like I do truly, and the place that I got to where I could really give myself love is kind of the embodiment, right, of
yeah.
that girl in the past of just, like, really, really loving her deeply, so
I love that. I'm sorry. Oh man, my mind goes in so many different spaces. And one, I'll say I'm glad that you can look at that backpack and say, I no longer need it.
yeah,
Um, and but I also want to also say that maybe it could be that bag is empty. You've emptied it.
yeah.
It's no longer full of anxiety, full of hurt, full of fear, rejection, and all the other things that you've been through. It's empty. And you can husa on that, right? Give it away, girl. You don't need it. Um,
Somebody else will really enjoy it, though.
somebody else will enjoy it. They can fill with new memories. Okay.
Yeah.
Mariah, you and I can sit here and talk forever. And I just want to ask you, before we get out of here, I'm intrigued, and I never asked you about the title of your book. The title of your book.
Dragon in You.
Okay, so Dragon in You. Tell me why you came up with that title.
Yeah, the website is The Dragon in You,
Okay.
so sometimes people get it confused, but it's been very emotional this whole time, so this is we'll just bring it home, but so everyone has a dragon in them, and it depends on how you're going to use that dragon, if you're gonna use it for good or for, to bring forth destruction, and learning how to, like, or I don't wanna say get over, right? Like, that's so toxic, but move through my trauma is I I have had to realize that what I wanted was a family and what my husband wanted was a legacy. So, as far as, like, our, big goals in life, right? So
Nice.
we both got what we wanted, right? I have a family, I have 2 beautiful children, I have, a late husband, and my late husband has, a legacy. He has 2 children who share his DNA, who look like him and who will talk about him the rest of his life. Like, what am I on here now? I'm talking about him. I'm I'm breathing life into this man that was no longer or is no longer here. And my wish to the world is that although we got what we wanted, it was through all of this destruction. It was through fear, through egos, and
Mm,
almost pulling out everything from another person to bring it forth. Whereas if we could have had those same things, and if we had, God, a higher purpose, or, like, the universe, whatever pulls you spiritually, and brought it forth that way, we could have had the same result and not had so much tragedy.
mm.
And then the last thing, which I've been on a few podcasts, and I actually haven't brought this up. So in his eulogy, the day before, there's a song by Taylor Swift,
Mhm.
and it's called "Long Live," and I actually read it during the services. I read it, definitely didn't sing it, but it said, "I had the time of my life fighting dragons with you," and it's like, "Long live all the" I don't know, I can't remember it now, but, "Long live all the magic we made. I had the time of my life fighting dragons with you," and it just encapsulated the beauty in our relationship together, and one night where I got the dichotomy of the legacy and all of that is I thought, "I had to fight for my life from the dragon in you."
Wow.
That's where I decided that, I spoke at his funeral where I said, "I had the time of my life fighting dragons with you." And then on the other hand, I had to fight for my life from the dragon in you, and we all have a dragon. It's how are we going to use it?
That's beautiful, Mariah.
Thank you.
It really is. It makes me, it definitely brings it full circle. And you're right. We can use our dragon to slay if we wanted to. Or we
There's
can
my
use it to
moment
heal
for
us.
sure.
And I think it's amazing. And I think sometimes I think even in the perspective that you put it for some of those women who are listening who may be in a toxic situation, maybe, a marriage or even on a job or what if that dragon is killing you,
Mhm.
you you have to get out of there.
Yeah, or redefine, boundaries, and for me, when I stopped looking at when I talked about it earlier with my husband and how he was coping through through alcoholism, when I it gave me the ability to look at him as a person again.
Yeah.
Like what he was trying to accomplish was to tame something, right? Instead of release it. And
Mm.
if you're at a toxic workplace, or, put that across any kind of insert whatever there, I no longer have to villainize the people at the work. Like I don't have to villainize the Mormon church or
Mm.
the people who wronged me or whatever. Like I can just say our relationship isn't together. The end. Like, "This job doesn't work for me. Accomplish what you need to without me, because we don't match." And that's it. And if I wish that I could have left my husband and that would have been the end of it, "We're not compatible." Nobody needs to read a book about it, but we had to write the book because the empathy and the compassion and the grace that comes
Yeah.
from it is worth it, but
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Mariah, thank you so much. Tell us where we can find your book at.
it's on Amazon,
Uh-huh.
Dragon in You by Miriah Dawn. You can also go to my website at thedragoninu.com.
Okay.
And I do have on the website, you can find my blog, and then you can sign up for a weekly mailing list, which will have the newest blog. And that's a little to hold myself accountable to keep writing and to keep you guys updated. But also on there, there's the social medias and I am offering if there's book clubs out there, if you guys want to bulk order it, then you can do that and then I'll do a Q&A with the group after they're done reading it. And then the most important part is that it is free to read on Kindle Unlimited, and that was put on my heart to offer it free to people because one, books don't make money. People don't make money off books.
Mm. Very
um and two, I think that everyone can agree this is bigger than me and someone patting me on the back or getting more sales. Like, if you feel like this is a book that will help you or someone just jump on there. You have to have a subscription to Kindle Unlimited, but I haven't found a way to do it without. So if somebody knows they wanna reach out, um, then work with me and we can bring that forth.
Wow, Maria, that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
And I agree with you. I love how you share your story and everything that you're putting forth in it. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming here and just filling the well with your journey, with your experience, with your authenticity. I really, really, really appreciate it so much. And before I let you out of there, I just feel that I want to just give you the floor. Just give our listeners something to take with them throughout the week.
You're not alone. Your community is out there and they are waiting for you and they're going to embrace you and be thankful for your presence in it. I mean, it took me 32 years to find a place where I feel like I belong, but those there's so much beauty in this world, and beauty is just multiplied when we're together. So, just I'm not like I feel like I have a degree in psychology, but but I have no formal training, so I have a hard time offering advice, but like you can get through it.
Yeah.
And there's people who want to be there. So,
Got it. All right. Thank you so much, Mariah. Take that with you guys. If you want that book, if you get it, please go ahead, jump on social media, take a picture with the book, share your experiences, Mariah. Tag Woman Witness on it too, because we would love to hear your experience and how you have grown and learned from anything that you've taken from this conversation or the book. So we thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Woman Witness podcast on the Woman Witness TV network. I'm your host, Leah Fortier. Perhaps you're chosen for such a time as this to write, to tell your story, your truth. Until next time, bye.